All right, if we are live, so it's 8:30. We'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Item number 3 on our agenda is an invitation for a citizen to schedule time on the commission agenda for an item not listed. Is there anyone here that would like to schedule an item that's not listed on our agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 4, which is the approval of the agenda. I think we have a change or an addition.
One addition to the executive session, 125-1 for personnel as well as for contract negotiations. So we're adding personnel.
Any other changes? With that, I entertain a motion to approve. Is there a second? Motion's been made and seconded. And any other comments? Any other comments on the agenda? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item 5 is our consent agenda. We have the approval of the minutes, approval of travel requests, approval of personnel action notices, approval of the human services report. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Pierce?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 6 is routine business, approval of claims. I think we have the claims payable and the Department of Revenue report. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments or questions? Comments or questions? If not, please call the roll.
Boersma?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item B is our employee recognition of milestone anniversaries. Commissioner Boersma will handle that, and the awardees will come up front, and Michelle will take a picture too. We always appreciate years of service. It's suitable for framing certificate.
Okay. The second one is for Alex Perkins for 5 years.
Doing good.
We classify that as a dedicated employee. He's out chip sealing. Thank you, Bart.
And Susan Taylor for 5 years.
Laura is in a meeting, so Stacy will accept for Laura.
Oh, Laura.
All right, again, congratulations to all those years of service. It's appreciated by the commission. We'll start with our department head reports. Brian, we'll start with you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As I mentioned earlier, we are chip sealing. We're finishing up south of Olga today and gonna get moved back over to County Road 35. So I'm gonna skip down to my bottom there. Bose Construction did get on site to start before the deadline. They're anticipated to be finishing up late today, early tomorrow. So that kind of holds us in plan to get our plans done as far as our chip seal goes. We should be, weather pending, be able to finish that this week because the weather next week doesn't look very promising. The smaller structure, the U structure 0605-220 U south of Sinai, we did finish that up. Got all of our signage placed. We still have yet to put the asphalt patch in, but we're hoping to work that in sometime between the weather next week. September 10th, I met with DOT and Pram Construction prior to the construction site being inundated with water. The work that was being done is they're finishing up on Pier 3. And the contractors again assured me once the water resides again, he is going to be out there commencing work as soon as the water allows. We need to allow that to drop down below the 8 feet as mentioned before on the flood stage gauge. September 11th, got an update as far as the Graves construction work on the grout. They plan on being in next week, and the weather should not affect their work. So as far as that goes, they still anticipate being completed by November 1. And that's the latest I've got. Working with Banner on that to have an official document as far as construction timelines and that go, but I have not yet received that. But there again, we're working on the assurance factor there with the contractor. September 11th, we all know we dealt with a lot of water. I have a list here connected to that with a map. Primarily the areas affected were south of Highway 14. We worked a little bit over the weekend to open some roads up as the water resided, and then the following week we did apply gravel to get those roads completely passable again. The only road that we're looking at right now that is still closed is County Road 14 south of Sinai. I guess, is there any questions on our flooding event? I know it was kind of a long drawn out process, but we did receive a lot of the rain that did fall in Madison. The 11.8 inches did come north through Battle Creek, through Lake Campbell, and that area received a lot of water that with the confluence of the Sioux there.
Any questions? All right, thank you, Brian.
Other than that, I got an update as far as the other under structure, the under 20 structure 06100, 070. We had a pre-con meeting the day we started the county conference out there. Jeff conducted that, met with the utilities and the crane operator to get the boxes set. You can see my timeline there. This is obviously tentative. If we start getting to be where we're getting a lot more water, we may have to hold off on this, but right now this is what we have set up. Demolition of that site will occur from the 3rd to the 8th. October 7th, the power company will disconnect the power. There is a reroute around there for them. They had planned this project out. October 8th, the crane will be set up. October 9th and 10th, set the boxes, and 14th through the 18th, backfill the site and open the road back up. Kind of a quick schedule. Well, that's all going to be weather dependent. I know we got harvest starting, and that was another thing I was going to bring up. We're starting to see the forage harvesters going, and we're working with those guys that are coming in and out of the fields. As far as the mud goes on the road, there might be an interim time where somebody may experience some mud on the road, but the farmers, the few I dealt with yesterday were pretty good about getting out there in a timely fashion to get that mud off the road. I know last night the university was cutting there, and they had a tractor out on the road to get the mud off the road, and I talked with them guys. Usually they've been pretty cordial. Now we start getting some moisture, we might start seeing a lot more of it. Haven't seen a lot yet, but it is something that we are dealing with, and I'm trying to work with them as much as possible.
What's the detour route for this one here? Do we have one set up for that?
We're gonna reroute them over on County Road 7.
Okay.
Or there's County Road 1 to the to the west.
But we can get them on we can keep them on a county road.
We'd like to keep them on a county road, to keep them off the township roads, but there's obviously gonna be some locals that are gonna be using it, but we'll work with them also if it gets to be to where they're really damaging it, we'll help them out with a blade or gravel if needed.
Right.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I got.
Any questions from the commission? No,
Hopefully
thank
it
you.
dries up.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who hope that. Marty? Should I say Marty and Bart?
Marty and Bart. I'm going to tag team you today, but this probably wasn't a good day to give you a lot of information, so we're going to kind of keep it simple today. Just quickly with the jail, we have 40 inmates, and we have on 24/7 has an increase from the last meeting. We had 140 participants. Today we have 157 participants, so we're up 17 on the 24/7 program. Have 6 on drug patch, 41 on PBT, so there's 82 come in twice a day. Got 21 on Scram, 85 on UAs that come in twice a week, and again, that doesn't include Hope Court or Drug Court individuals, and then we have 4 on GPS. Just a quick update, the inmate that I had in Falk County, we did bring him back to Brookings, so he is with us now. And we still have some medical issues with him that we probably are going to take him back to Aberdeen because Aberdeen is giving us the best price for his teeth. So we'll probably take him back there to get his teeth repaired. Inmate rations, just to kind of let you know, I'm probably going to be short at the end of the year. It's costing us about $25,000 a month to feed the inmates, and so it's going to be short. Maybe around 25, 30,000, probably short at the end that I predict. So I'll keep you posted on that. Other than that, unless you have some questions, I just want to praise the highway department. With all the water and stuff, they were out, got roads blocked. I think during the week we only had 3 vehicles that went into the water, in which they were going through the water too fast and kind of hydroplaned into the ditch, but we didn't have anybody seriously hurt and so forth. And highway department was out quick to block roads and get detours set up and in my office took calls. Everybody wants to go through around the barricades. Can we go around the barricades? And wants my permission to go around the barricades, and I go, I can't give you my permission to go around the barricades. You just until the barricades are up, you can't go around. But the highway department was really on top of everything, so I appreciate that. Anyway, if you have any questions, otherwise I'm going to just have Bart give you a quick overview. We'll try to keep this short because I know you got a big day today.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Sheriff, we're on a contract for the cost of the meals. Why are we thinking we're going to be short on budget?
Increase in inmates, and Bart's actually going to give that. We got an increase of inmates from last year, and when we did our budget for last year, we didn't put that many for an increase. Plus the increase of food is when we put out a bid. We didn't plan for as much increases that we did get.
Thank you.
And the thing, one of it is too, Leanne, is that inmates are staying longer too, and I don't have anybody out on work release. There's only 2 or 3 out on work release. So when I have 40 in there, we're usually doing 40 meals. Normally in the past, we had more people on work, school release, that type. We were able to kind of keep our meals down, but now it's every day it's the same, 40 breakfast, 40 noon, and 40 for supper. So.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commission.
Morning.
First of all, I wanted to tell you some good news with last week. I wanted to thank you for allowing us to use the extra rooms here for our final day of our crisis intervention team training. That was our second successful training program we did here in Brookings. We hosted it here, and we had 2 deputies and 1 correction officer that went through that training and graduated through that training. That was a week-long training program. But we did our final day here in different rooms to do our scenario training, so appreciate to be able to have those rooms to use. I'm going to go, the sheriff handed you out a graph this morning, which we'll look at. We started seeing a notice in our increase in our inmate numbers and our jail activity, so we did some short studies, and just to confirm what we were noticing, our average daily population last year for 2018, we were at 33 inmates per day on average. So far this year, up to yesterday, we are at 38 per day. We've had an increase of 5 per day. So looking at your graph, on the bottom there, the bottom graph shows the daily population comparisons. The blue line is 2018,
Stacy, you want to put this up?
and then the red line is this year's. We usually have one event, and I'm not going to name that, I think we can all figure out what it is. We usually have one event in October that usually is our biggest spike for when we got our biggest daily population in jail. And you can see that there towards the right of the graph, there's the biggest blue spike there, and that's the biggest blue spike for the whole year. From January to May of this year, the red line was staying up and down, but staying pretty close to what our numbers were last year. And then towards the start of June, the red line started heading north. And there were several times from then to now that we have started to hit that peak that we're usually seeing in October very frequently. And at one point there in July, you can see that we actually overtook that October peak. So we're hitting these peaks very often now. You can look through the whole last year for 2018, we never touched that peak that we see in October. We only hit that one time. So that's causing a lot of our increase in the jail.
Probably one of the things, I can't even blame the state's attorney for that. It's actually, it's the way we do things too. The Highway Patrol has a trooper that is designated for drug interdiction. The city police have a couple officers that all they do is drug interdiction, and they've been bringing us a lot of arrests for drugs. Our DWI arrests are up, as I'm sure the state's attorney will say the same thing, is that so that's some of those, when you have designated individuals doing only interdiction, drug interdiction, alcohol interdiction, that's going to bring our arrests up. So that's some changes too from last year.
Thank you. The upper graph is showing our booking comparisons. Same again, the blue line is last year and the red is this year. You'll see there the red line is trailing off, going down, but that's our September number, and we haven't finished up September yet, so that's not going to stay at that level. We still have another 7 days or so here of bookings that will increase that, plus we got a weekend involved in that area too. So we did check through, we ran a comparison for September of last year for the same amount of time period as we've got out of September this year. We're showing a lot more bookings during our overnight time. So between the two, between the 2 years, we're showing 22 bookings for the time period last year to 53 this year. 39 and 37 during day shift. So day shift, we're not seeing a lot increase. It actually went down by 2. So I'd say we're staying pretty even during the daytime. But then in the evening shift, where we've picked up again, we've got 44 last year to 67 this year. during that time frame. We've got, and the sheriff I know has reported on this before, we've got 3 correctional officers usually scheduled on during our day and afternoon shifts. Those are mainly scheduled in there for our increase with our 24/7 sobriety program activities. But the extra regular jail stuff that's going on, I almost need another correctional officer on staff to handle all the extra stuff that's going on. So we do have a good lot of correctional officers, but they can't always help us where we're needing. There's times, we've got 7 of each correctional officer, 7 males and 7 female part-time correctional officers that cover our weekend shifts. We've also got third COs set up on that time, but we're starting to. They can't always put in as many hours as we're needing. They're helping us out, but some of them have other jobs. They've got school and things like that they're also doing, so they can't help us out as much as they're needing. So I'm asking from the commission if we can look at hiring some more part-time staff to help out with covering things. And we would look at putting on staff extra during those peak times that we're seeing our increases. I know that's gonna hit into our budget, into our salary budget. I'm just letting you know where we're at with things and seeing what we'd be able to do to help alleviate some of what we're seeing.
Does everyone understand when we say we peak at 67, those aren't going to stay. We're peaking at book-in. Yeah, they're booked in, so they're in the facility probably less than 12 hours. But we're a lot of the individuals that they're bringing into arrest are processed. It takes a little while to process them. If they have an alcohol offense, we have to find someone. If they can be released, they have to find someone to come get them and so forth. So a lot of times these stay less than 12 hours. But that was peak times. That's when we need extra staff. Now some of this may not be a big increase when it comes to our salary budget. It's just that we need to have, our biggest thing is to try to find more people that we can pool from. I have 14 to pool from, but when you're dependent a lot on college students and they have activities and stuff, they're not always available when we need them. So we're looking to kind of increase our pool. Will we increase some hours? We may increase some hours, but they're going to be overtime hours that we're putting on to full-time staff. So hopefully we can kind of wash. But and we probably could use some of the 24/7 money to help on that. What hurts us during the day is civilian fingerprints. We've limited to Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays, but all the they really got us going at the end of August and so forth, because all new teachers at SDSU, all new teachers at the school system, and not just Brookings, but the surrounding, they come from Kingsbury County to come do fingerprints with us because they need to be fingerprinted. Then also the nursing students. There's about 200 nursing students that have to come in twice a year to be fingerprinted. So they bombard us a lot during the day. And then, of course, we have attorneys and so forth. So it gets to be pretty hectic. My biggest problem, and I know that you get tired of me listening, is the congestion in the control room with the 24/7. I need to find a way to relieve the congestion in the control room. We're working on maybe on scheduling better with our 24/7, maybe giving them a leeway. There are some counties that give a leeway. They can come in 3 hours on the front side and 3 hours on the back side to blow. I've always been pretty consistent. I only want 12 hours. And not give them 15 minutes to get here and stuff, but it's getting to the point I may have to give them some room on both sides, like some of the other places are doing. So we're trying to do things efficiently, but it's just tough. 24/7 really, and I want to keep that program, because if we didn't have 24/7, our jail would be busting at the seams, no doubt in my mind. And so with 24/7, that's keeping people out of jail, keeping them working, and getting into school and so forth. So I'm not, it's just a lot of congestion in the control room area, especially with the rest coming in and and so forth. So right now, we're looking at is if, am I going to increase a lot of hours? We'll try not to, but I'd like to increase my part-time staff to have more to pull from. Does that make sense? So that's what we're looking to for today.
Any questions from the commissioners?
I mean, how close are you to the maxing out the hours right now? I mean, you've got part-timers that you said can only work.
We're staying with the percentage.
Yeah, we're just below our percentage, I believe, for our salary line.
And I can use 24/7. I can always increase my 24/7 hours to help out with that 24/7 issues too. The problem I have is Tanya. I have a full 8-hour person who is Tanya, but Tanya's so busy doing the administrative. If I didn't have Tanya, we probably wouldn't ever get her money because she's a hound dog with money. She makes sure these inmates pay, and when they're not on time, she gets the money. So she does a lot of administrative stuff with 24/7 when you have 157 clients. So the two part-time people that I got in there for 4 hours, so I'm running 8 hours of part-time people that comes out of 24/7. They're the ones actually doing the tests and so forth. So I could probably increase some staff into that and take it out of 24/7 too.
I guess what I was getting at, how many part-timers do you have that aren't getting their full amount of hours? I mean,
We have, to give you an actual number, I would say maybe, probably four to five that are just doing their weekends. They just do their two weekends a month, and that's all that they're able to do. And that's where that really hurts us, because we can't even pull them in on the extra weekends. We can't pull them in through the weekdays because they've got other jobs, they've got school, and it's just hard to get them. And I don't want to not hire those because they do help us out, but it's just hard to do.
All right, so at this
A
point,
few of them do their weekends, like Bart says, but they can't come in on a Monday to help us with court. Or if we have transports, if I have a low-profile transport, we'll use correctional officers because the transport officer can't keep up with transports if I use the deputy all the time. So, especially to go to Yankton, a lot of times I'll use 2 correctional officers to go to Yankton so that they have a backup person. So then that eliminates a part-time person for other hours at the jail. So.
okay, so I guess the question I have is, you're looking to add to the 14 people you have part-time,
Right.
so that you have a larger pool to draw from.
We have a little more pool.
How big do you want that pool to be?
I would think if we could get to 10 of each, we would be good.
10 of each would be good.
That
So
would
right
be
now, that
hiring-
14
that
is
would be
So
not.
that'd be 6 extra, so it'd be 3 males and 3 additional females.
Okay. Second question is how long is the training period for these correctional officers before you can actually put them to work?
We run them through a 3-week training,
So,
120 hours of training.
yeah. So at this point in time, as you look at your budget and you're bringing these people in, it really doesn't seem like it should be a heck of a lot of change. I think the problem is finding the 3 extra on each side. Is that easy to do or
It
not
could
easy to
be
do?
challenging. That could be challenging as well. The last time we had 3 female correction officers leave quickly. They got jobs. One moved out of state and such. So we did an interview, and we had 3 people we interviewed. That's the only people we had to put in applications. Thank goodness they were all 3 good, and we was able to hire all 3 of them. But
So the number that you have right now, 14, that's not established by any ordinance or policy from us. That's your policy of 14?
Well, the commission has allowed us to, we always have asked permission to, originally I had only 3, and then that wasn't enough, so then we'd just always come to you and say, is it okay if we add some more to the pool? So
Okay, all right.
it's not-
So not an official action on our part, it's just more of a permission. That's what I was trying to get at. I wasn't here when you added the rest.
I think we have to start doing this. mean, especially when you have people that can work the weekends. And sometimes that's the hardest time to fill, is people not wanting to work the weekends because they want to spend time with their family and different things like that. So you have to have some flexibility of a part-timer that may only want to work 10 hours a week, you know, and they can't maximize. And so we got to get another person that'll work 10 hours a week. And so it's better than paying overtime, put it that way, you know, and stuff like
Right.
that. And so I have no problem with this. And I think it's your department's not going to be the only one. BCOAC is looking at it, even talking with Beta. Beta's looking at it, of trying to get the part-time employees, enough of them to fill the part-time needs. And so I have no problem with this. I think we're going to need to. And potentially, you're training some part-timers that potentially could fill in for full-timers down the road too. Down the road,
Right.
stuff too, if they like it and that kind of thing too.
And when we do our training, we try to train them so that actually we put them right in the mix right away. So while they're being trained, they're actually still doing stuff. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like it's separate. So we utilize them right away. So they're kind of thrown right in the mix, right? I mean, they get their
feet wet
hands-on,
right
they get
away.
their feet wet right now.
Excuse me.
Personally, I have no problem with increasing it. I was just looking at a number, and you're saying 20. You know, I don't have a problem with that. It's 3 more on each side, obviously. So you probably need more at some point in time. It's getting tougher to find part-time and people that are willing to do that type of work. So, I mean, you've got to do what you got to do to get enough people to cover your hours for you. So I don't have an issue with it. Anybody else have any comments? Leanne, do you have any comments? Commissioner Pierce? Commissioner?
Just that, I guess what my concern is I don't have any objection to approving the request at this time, but it's always when we approve personnel increases, then we never change that down the road. And I'm pretty confident that when the detention center remodel is completed, we're going to be looking at overall staffing, and I just don't want us to do something right now that will make a difference in what we're doing then.
I don't believe that it will. I mean, if you have to eliminate positions, hopefully at that point in time. I mean, it happens in business. It happens all over the place. But it would be the part-time positions. I think it would be the first to be shortened if it was possible. So, and that obviously is something we'll study when we get the new detention center built. So, any other comments?
Can I chime
Yes,
in?
you may.
Just on your screen, we were talking about the budget with about 75% of the year complete now through September. We have about 27, just shy of 28% left in that budget. So you're in good shape there. So that's okay. I think just to remain consistent, if you are okay with this request, we can go ahead and start the advertising process. But what we would bring to you at the next meeting is a request to fill vacancy for these positions, since these are outside of our pay plan. I mean, it just sort of formalizes that, so we get that on the books.
Any objection? Hearing none. Thank you, Bart. Any other comments, Sheriff?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you. Jacob, we'll wait for your report.
Mr. Chair, would you ask people as they come up to speak really directly into the microphone?
All righty. We'll pull the mic a little bit closer, Jacob, so they can hear you.
Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning.
Due to the widespread flooding that we've had countywide, our office thought it was a good idea to put out a sort of a press release on the county's website, on the Facebook page, and on the Twitter feed. And what that press release stated was for anybody in the county that had flood damage to their property, water in their basements, furnaces wrecked, structural damage, we wanted them to contact our office, set up a time to send an appraiser out, look at that property and decide if there is value reduction warranted and what that would be. So far, we've had 113 individual properties contact our office, either directly or through the 211 FEMA reporting. Bob has shared all that info with us. We visited probably around 40 of those as of today. And so far, it's pretty common to remove all the basement finish. That's what we've seen. on most of these properties, and it's looking like, on average, about a $10,000 reduction in value or $170 relief in taxes. Any questions on that?
So, and that's in the county. So then if they turn around and want to rebuild or refinish the basement, will they required for a building permit for that? And we'll have a chance to see that, or?
Yeah, it depends on where they're located within the county and the permitting requirements for that area. But what we've done is everybody that we've visited, we've started a new list that we're going to recheck with them next fall as to if they've put the basement back to where it was or if they've done something a little bit different. We'll look at putting that value back up to what's there. But you know, there's people in Aurora that are holding off on refinishing their basements because they got some other issues with sewer and whatnot over there. So it's going to be kind of a case-by-case basis as to if the value is going to come back to where it was or not.
I appreciate you being proactive on it, because otherwise we'll be coming back to making adjustments 2 years down the road saying I'm getting taxed for unfinished basement or a finished basement and I haven't had it for 2 years, and we got to go backwards. So it's
Right,
better
it's easier to do it this way than abate it later, so
exactly. So
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being proactive on that. Bob, Mr. Hill will have your report.
Good morning.
Morning.
The September 9th, I gave the city of Bushnell their emergency management briefing. Everything went well. Actually, it was one of the most attended briefings, which surprised me of all. September 8th to 12th, we had the South Dakota Emergency Management Association Conference in Pierre. Richard attended the complete conference. I was out there, but on September 11th, I pulled back early because Sioux Falls had got hit by that tornado and there was more severe weather predicted. So I came back in on September 11th. And of course, between September 11 and 12, we got 5 or plus inches of rain in Brookings County. We started the 211 process on the 13th, and as of now, we've had 113 responses, as Jacob said, through the 211 system. September 13th, we held our National Preparedness Day event. It was from 10 to 2. We had 7 tables set up downstairs. We had the severe weather shelter open downstairs for people to go down and look at it, and I carried several down before I left, and then they kept coming in up until 2 o'clock. September 16th and 17th, I was in the South Dakota County Commission's convention out in Pierre. September 19th, we held our full-scale exercise. It was originally scheduled to be the city of Aurora. We still use the city of Aurora, but we did not pull our command trailer to Aurora since they were still recovering. We held the exercise in this room here. We had Department of Equalization, Department of Finance, Highway Department, Human Services, and the County Development Department all participated in the exercise. And it actually worked out real good. It gave us time to go through our local emergency operations plan and work out some bugs in the EOC, which, once again, we're going to do again October 15th over at South Dakota State University. September 23rd, yesterday, we had FEMA came in and met with one township. I sat in on that meeting, and FEMA's been meeting with our townships for the last couple of weeks, and there's one going on right now, matter of fact, downstairs. We try to attend those when possible, and of course, we answer any questions that the townships may have coming up. We do expect another declaration for this latest event. So anyone out there listening on the TV or radio, you need to document this one, and that's why we're utilizing 211. That documentation is what we'll use to make the next FEMA declaration with all the damages that's being reported. And that goes for all the townships and their roads, that goes for all the cities and any infrastructure in the cities. We can count all that, I believe. And this evening, I will be briefing the City of Brookings Council on Emergency Management Matters. Later in this meeting, I'll be coming back up. We'll be discussing the hazmat plan and brief the local emergency planning performance grants. Any questions?
Any questions for commissioners?
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. All right, I think we're going to move into Sonia and the Brookings County 4-H report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, well, the 4-H year is just about over. We begin our new 4-H year on October 1st, and I submitted a report of things that have happened really over the summer. We held a couple new things this summer. We held our Progressive Ag Safety Day, which I know that I shared that information with you earlier, but the Progressive Ag Safety Foundation funds safety days across the United States per application process. And so this was the first year that they've been very prominent in South Dakota because of some previous programs that had really kind of died out. And so there was an abundance of those safety days held across South Dakota, and we also conducted one here in Brookings, and are looking to do some more again in the future, and have submitted an application for 2020. Our summer 4-H shooting sports concluded a couple weekends ago with their state shoot in here, Mitchell, excuse me. We had several that participated. The weekend ended up being a little rainy and wet out there in Mitchell, but they still held the event. We do have 2 Brookings County 4-Hers that will represent the muzzleloading discipline at the 2020 National Shoot in Grand Island, Nebraska. Elizabeth Schultz and Dylan Singray. So we'll be having some representation again. We had 4 kids from Brookings this year go, and we'll have at least those 2 planning to attend in 2020, and potentially more after our winter shooting sports conclude in April. Again, we held 4-H camp at Lake Ponset and our other summer qualifying events, such as the County Horse Show that we conducted at the Swiftel Center. We did a couple day camps for 4-H aged youth, our Clover Buds, which are those pre-4-H members, ages 5 to 7, and had a good day with them, and our 4-H Greenhorn camp, and those kids are ages 8 to 10. Kind of beginner age, those are our beginner ages in 4-H, and it's some exposure for those that are brand new in 4-H this year or are in their first couple of years, and those that are not in 4-H fall in that age group, exposes them to opportunities as a 4-H member. All of them, Clover Buds and Greenhorn camp kids, left the day with exhibits that they could bring to the fair. The Greenhorn kids, because we had a smaller group, were able to do some food processing or food preservation and made some jam. So they each took home 2 jars, one that they could use at Achievement Days and one that they could use at the state fair. Our special foods contest we hold in the Sioux Valley Fax Room had more numbers this year than last, and it works really well over there. They have a great setup. They have some variety as far as the stovetops go. We've got opportunity to use gas and electric, and have kids that prefer one over the other because of what they're used to at home, and it's always very tasty. It's a fun event. Our other Youth in Action events included fashion review and public presentations. Our fashion review contest is held before Achievement Days, but has their public review stage presence at the conclusion of the barbecue. And our public presentation contest happened during Achievement Days this year at the Swiftel Center. I've indicated our numbers for exhibit at Achievement Days. Everything was up this year. We did feel that, especially when it came to our livestock stalling. But I'm really glad to say that over the last few years, our Achievement Day look has varied because of circumstances at the Swiftel Center, events, construction, whatever that might be. This year, the ice arena wasn't available like we'd used the last couple of years because of their construction project, and we were able to use the holding barn and the arena as well as their glass corridor on the south side. And I'm happy to say that that's going to most likely be the way we continue. And it does eliminate a little bit of expense from having to remove the walls of the hockey rink, but the families really appreciated how it felt a lot more like together, a little more cohesive, and did appreciate the stalling setup. So I did work with Scott and his staff at Swiftel ahead of time to make sure we were going to be able to make everything fit. And we'll do it again this year because we'll have more pens. We have some new pens coming, pens that had been ordered by our Leaders Association for pigs back in March. Long story short, we had pens to use. They weren't the right pens. However, the new pens should be coming mid-October at the latest, I hope, and the other pens that were delivered to get us by are actually going to be purchased for our goats. The goat project is one that has growing numbers both at county level and state, so they felt like it was a good setup to keep those little guys in. Sometimes they like to really escape. So it was fun to see increased numbers. We bought some new shelving and display pieces for Achievement Days, and we're able to project our display up instead of out because of the shelving, and it made the exhibits much easier to look at, and they're much more appealing when they're not all laying flat and had some interest to them. And so that made a big difference, not to mention half of those display exhibits went on to the state fair, and to display 500 plus exhibits in a 10 by 20 booth at the fair is challenging. I was lucky that a lot of them were photography, so they get stored somewhere else, and I took 5 of those new shelves that we purchased because they collapse nicely and get to be about 3 inches once they're folded up as far as like a width. Fit in the back of a pickup real nice. They set up nice. They rolled right in. People were jealous. I won't lie. They were jealous of our ability to use those and make a creative and appealing display in that space as well. We had 116 Youth in Action entries at the state fair, which is our fashion review, special foods, public presentations, judging contest. They hold dairy judging and consumer decision-making judging, horticulture judging, a couple different skillathons, poultry judging, and some specific showmanship contests. So that number, it's nice to see. We have busy 4-Hers, and we're not alone in that. 4-H members get themselves very scheduled at the state fair from sunup to sundown, and so to see 116 of them also doing something that puts themselves into a position where they need to interact with a panel of judges or demonstrate their knowledge to somebody really speaks highly of those kids and their abilities and their willingness to make sure that that's a priority in their fair schedule. Over half of our livestock went out to the state fair, and if you were at the fair at all, you also, or heard from anybody that was at the fair, livestock exhibits were up altogether, and so space was tight. And I think that you would hear things one way or the other about that, but we contributed to that as well. So nice to know that there was good numbers. Our winter shooting sports will get started with registration in early November and a safety day in December to get our air gun kids, BB gun, air rifle, air pistol, ready for the start of their program in January. We're looking at an open house the end of October, first part of November, depending upon a parking lot project, and we'll kind of discuss that amongst our group of instructors and see if we stick with that October 27 date or if we look into November. We will be adding several additional lines of BB gun for sure to our already historically available shooting sport sessions on Sunday. We will be offering BB gun with some extended educational programming, which allows and makes eligible for daisy competition, the kids that do that line. And there's daisy competitions that happen across the state in different areas. And there isn't BB gun at the national 4-H shoot because Daisy offers a national BB gun competition. So if there were kids that really got excited and involved in not only the Sunday training, but the competitions that happen throughout the spring on Saturday with a team, they might find themselves eligible for that Daisy competition in the summer. And I think that they hold that down south. It's not in Nebraska. It's completely different. I want to say Arkansas, but I'm not sure that's correct. In addition to archery and .22 rifle. As the 4-H year does wind down, like I said, October 1st kicks off our new year. We do have 348 youth members enrolled, which is an increase of 26 members from last year, and 69 registered volunteers. There's a lot more individuals that are volunteering their time with 4-H, but they're always under the guidance or supervision of one of these registered volunteers or myself. So the registered volunteers go through a little bit more of a procedure in order to be identified as truly safe for a youth audience and have been background checked and gone through just a little bit more of preparation. National 4-H Week kicks off on October 6th. It'll piggybacks right up to Hobo Days, where Brookings County 4-H will have a presence. We have 68 signed up to walk in the parade that day, so we'll hope that those little ones don't freeze their fingers off and that the day ends up being nice. Our theme this year the national theme is Inspire Kids to Do, and South Dakota 4-H has identified a different twist on that for every day of the week. But I think Wednesday or Tuesday is going green, so think about recycling and wearing green, okay? Support. You will all be invited, and you should mark your calendars for our annual 4-H Recognition Award Night that will be held on Tuesday, November 12th, and our awards will start at 6:30, but a supper will be served from 5 to 6:15. I was also asked to share some information with you. I included in that 116 number the 12 youth that participated this past weekend in the state livestock judging skillathon and state livestock judging contest that happened on the campus of SDSU. We had 3 senior teams. We had 2 juniors that participated on a team that they combined with a 4-H member from Clark County in order to make a team. One of our senior teams placed second in the state. The opportunity for them has been somewhat presented by a member or the instructor, leader, coach for the state livestock judging team about judging at a national competition in Kansas City, Kansas during the American Royal Livestock Expo. And this team does need the permission of the state 4-H office, of which they're willing to give to them because they were the second place team in the state, but there's no funding for them. And I have sent out some information to our 4-H leaders about helping to offset some of their expenses, which they expect to be around $2,500 for the team, for the coaches, as far as the registration, travel, and hotel, food, that kind of stuff. I understand that Commissioner Jensen was contacted by one of those youth on the team, and so I'm sharing that information with you also this morning. As a representative or a team representing South Dakota 4-H, they do need to abide by South Dakota 4-H trip policies, which includes looking at the ages of our 4-H members. The team was 4 girls. I'll see if I can remember them. Tessa Peterson, Kesslyn Willert, Liberty Thompson, and
Emily Knoll.
Thank you, Emily Knoll. Emily actually was in the top 10. They do take the top 4, not the top team, but the top 4 to the National Western Roundup in Denver in January. So this group, the coaches, Rob and Christy Zielinski, are super excited about how well they did, recognizing that this group has a lot of talent and potential for being number one next year. They'll all be returning, but two of those girls are already 18, their 4-H age is still 17, but they have turned 18. Because of that, they can't stay in a room with youth under the age of 18. The other two are 16 or 17. So they have a little bit more expense involved in hotel rooms, which I don't imagine will be cheap for them. We kind of estimated about $200 a night. They're looking at about probably 2 nights. The contest is October 24th, a Thursday, and there's a coaches meeting the evening of the 23rd. So in visiting with Rob Zielinski, most likely being on the road to Kansas City on the 23rd, present for their meeting, stay that night. Judging contest begins at 7 the next morning with awards that afternoon. I would imagine it really depends on what the schedule actually turns out to be, if they would stay that night or if they would come back. But Larry asked me to provide a little bit more information about what that entails, because of that request from that 4-H'er to him regarding dollars.
Okay, so the amount you're requesting is what?
Well, I'm not sure. I think that our 4-H leaders might look at giving them each about $300, because that is the amount that they've provided to others. We have in the past had a 4-H member that did attend the Denver, the judging at Denver. That trip fee from the state 4-H office was $600, and our Leaders Association paid half of that cost. So they provided $300 for their travel expenses affiliated with that trip. I shared this information just only yesterday afternoon with our 4-H Leaders Association. There's a lot of support for helping them, definitely. They can't afford to pay for all of it, and they want them to have some ownership of that too. So I don't know what they were looking for. Perhaps she indicated that to you in your conversation, but I would think that, $500 to $1,000, if that was something you were willing to contribute to their efforts, would be wonderful.
Commissioner Jensen, do you have any proposal?
I would propose 500.
Any other comments?
Did you say they were going to also participate, the students themselves, or are they looking to get 100% paid for by?
No, there will definitely be some out of pocket for those kiddos, yes. All of this state livestock judging only just occurred, and registration is due by October 1. Otherwise, this wouldn't necessarily have been something I probably would have even addressed today, but.
Is there a motion to that effect? Don't have to have a motion to that?
That action item is not listed on your agenda.
So how do you want to handle it?
We have funds that are
Commission funds.
promotional funds. Is that all used up? Obviously, we have reserve funds for.
Let me see.
While Stacy's checking, do you have any questions of me? I know that it's 9:29 and you have a scheduled 9:30.
Just thank you for the report. It's very thorough, and it's great numbers, and we're glad to see the numbers continue to rise, and thank you for your work on it.
You're welcome. My phone was ringing often. It has been ringing often. When can I get registered for 4-H? I'm talking with people at my kids' volleyball games, and so it's great to be being asked those questions. It's great people are looking ahead to that and making sure that they're ready for that October 1 date, and we look forward to next year.
There is money in the public relations line available.
Yep, 500 is good meeting.
So without objection, we will fund. Without objection. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll share the great information. Have a wonderful day.
We have a scheduled agenda item at 9:30, a public hearing and approval of the fiscal year 2020 annual budget. So is there a motion to approve the annual budget?
So moved.
Second?
Motion been made and seconded. At this time, I'll open the public hearing on our budget. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address our budget, annual budget? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and ask for board comments. Any comments from the board on our budget? Any questions? Commissioner Pierce, any questions?
No questions from me.
Okay.
Stacy, the changes here,
We have to go line by line through these changes so they get read into the minutes. So, in the general fund, the current property tax amount changed due to utilities and growth. It went, revenues actually increased, right? Is that right, Vicki? Revenues increased by $601. You can jump in here. To offset that, we actually expensed that out of community health. They had made a request to Vicki due to their increase, we budgeted for them next year for a new copier. And so the maintenance fees on that increased by about $600, believe it or not. So we just took that and offset the revenue, the $601 in the additional revenue we offset with the expense from community health to continue to balance the general fund. And then similarly in the 301 fund, current property tax, utilities and growth, due to utilities and growth, it increased $16. So we put an increase of that $16 in the highway buildings line, budget line in the 301 fund. $16.
congratulations.
I know that Brian will spend that wisely. Miscellaneous revenue, we had an increase of $31 there. We had to offset that with the less 5% from the general fund for $31. All of that doesn't look like a whole lot of change, and it really wasn't, but it did affect the general fund levy, and that was due to actually decrease in utilities, and maybe Vicki can explain that some more, but at what it did was for the general fund levy, it was at $3.931, and it changed, it went up 0.008 cents. So 1/1000th of a penny it went up. So that overall levy, the overall county levy, went from 4.188 to 4.196.
And yes, the centrally assessed utilities was down by $6.6 million. All of the utilities pretty much went down except Northwestern Energy went up, but Basin Electric went down by $6 million, and that's their value that comes from the state of South Dakota. So that was reflected, and that is why the levy is going up by a little bit.
All right, any other questions on the amendments? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Krogman?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Pierce?
Yes.
Boersma? Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next action is an action to approve the resolution number 19-42, a resolution approving the fiscal year 2020 annual budget, which we just amended. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Pierce, any comments?
No, thank you.
Just thank you for your work on this budget. I know it's a long process, and again, appreciate Stacy and Vicki and your staff and everybody putting this budget together. We're very fortunate to be able to to balance the budget without any major cuts, and we're very fortunate that way because there's a lot of other counties and cities that are having to make some deep cuts. So also appreciate the department heads doing such a good job with their budgeting process, because we do ask them to toe the line and not put extras or what ifs in there, and I think it's been a good process for as long as I've been here, and again, this is another good budget, so thank you.
One comment on the resolution, the levy amount wasn't changed, so we'll adjust that and get a corrected document to you to sign. That reflects what we just approved as the amendments.
Right. As amended. Somebody make a comment? Anyway, I think what we're going to do here is obviously vote on this, but again, echo Commissioner Krogman's comments to the staff for putting this together. Millions of dollars, and we work on $31, we got to move somewhere else. It just amazes me that you're that finite in your appraisal process of the budget. It just blows my mind. I couldn't do that with my home budget for $31. So again, echo Commissioner Krogman's comments. We appreciate all the help in that process. It's very complicated, and you do a great job. Any other comments from commissioners? If not, we'll call the roll.
Jensen.
Aye.
Pierce.
Commissioner Pierce, are you still with us?
I am, and I vote yes.
Boersma.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We've got a little bit before our next one, so we're going to move into regular business. Item A is an action to approve resolution number 19-43, a plat of Lot 10A, Block 2, Sunset Point Addition, and government lots 3 and 4 of Section 22, Township 112 North, Range 47 west of the 5th Principal Meridian, Brookings County, South Dakota. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments, any reports? Bob?
This plat was heard at our September Planning and Zoning meeting and approved unanimously and sent to this board as a recommendation that you approve it.
Okay. Yeah, we could have. Vicki, we'll get back to you in a moment. We'll finish this one. Any other comments? If not, we'll call the roll.
Pierce.
Aye.
Boersma.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Motion carries.
We need to get the finance officer's report too. I'm sorry I missed that. So we'll get Vicki back up here. We kind of shifted our routine here to put you last, and I forgot you anyway, so finance officer's report.
You're fine. To give you an update, we did receive some funding for special bridge, the DOT bridge and special funding, and that was $1,166,008.59. And I know Brian knows the specifics on this if he wants to explain that a little bit, but we did receive that money, and that has to be used for road and bridges.
Within 3 years.
Okay.
And we do have that one in the 5-year plan as approved to spend on the structure north of Bruce.
And to let you know, too, that there will be an auction on some South Dakota land. School and Public Lands out of Pierre is going to hold the auction here in this building on Thursday at 1 o'clock, and our office is going to be the clerk of that sale. So just to let you know that that is going on. And in the last couple weeks, the state's attorney's office did get the quitclaim deeds for the property in Sinai and Bruce done. So today, I think Commissioner Bartley will be signing those, so those will get out to the small towns now. So thank you for doing that, Dan. And then to kind of give you an update on the finance officer's report, in looking at the budget, all the departments are all within range. We have the 24/7 that is over budget, and we knew that's coming, so we'll have to do a supplemental budget hearing to take money out of their fund balance. And that is something we are aware of, and we will be doing that at a later time. I did notice that there was claims in the amount of $64,000 out of judicial for this time's claims, so it's just those judicial and court-appointed attorneys, that type of thing, that we'll be watching closely coming up to, it's always hard to budget where they're going to be, so that is something we'll keep an eye on. And in looking at the surplus cash, we're at 23.25%, which is right on target for where we've been. I think the last couple of years we were a little higher, but over the last 8 to 10 years, we're right in the ballpark. So we are good there. And after next month in October, that should be going up with the property taxes coming in. And we have the be it noted items, the auditor's account with the treasurer, the payroll and additives totals, the highway expenditure report, and the Register of Deeds claim statement of fees collected. That will all be it noted items. And one thing that is coming up at 9:45 is the David Landsman is here on behalf of Elkton, the mayor of Elkton, and just for your benefit, I did put some facts in your report that shows what the valuation is from equalization and also what the back taxes are. So when Dave's up here, you can look at that too to make your decision. And then Jenna was going to give some information on the surplus sale. I'll let her do that.
Yeah, just real quick. So you should have received in your packet my report. The surplus sale we did do for 10 days beginning on August 12th. We didn't have a whole lot of items that we were selling, but we did. We were able to sell 6 of the items totaling $2,634, and attached for you were the items that were sold and how much they were sold for. I did have a gentleman that reached out to me after the sale was over, letting me know that he was interested in a couple of the items. So with your permission, I would like to relist a couple of the items. It's just release to the item, so it's no big deal. And then the rest of the items that didn't sell are pretty much junk. So I would like to just take them to the landfill. So with your permission.
Objection.
Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you. And that's all. Yep.
Thank you. It's close enough to 9:45 not to start item E or F, so we're going to go into our 9:45 scheduled item, an Elkton property discussion with David Landsman, the mayor of Elkton. David is here. Have you come right up to the microphone. Speak closely and loudly into the microphone so everyone can hear who's on a phone elsewhere. Good morning.
Morning.
This is a discussion on how to dispose of parcel 34425-0220004-00 in Elkton Town, Lot 4, Block 22 in the subdivision entitled Blocks 14 to 26. But before we take action, we'll have discussion, so please enlighten us.
Well, I don't know. I pushed to have this land condemned a long time ago. We finally got it done, got it tore down. It's been a long ordeal. We'd like to, I don't know how, if for sure, is the money we have involved in it for tearing down, I don't know, is that this 10,000? Or that I don't know. We've got about that much in it, tearing it down. Without, I don't know if we get that back or from anyone or any place or not. if there's any way that we could get some type of, how we could get possession or purchase it or something like that, the land, so we'd have a use for it. So maybe we could get our money out of it if we could get it back in our hands somehow. There's tax dollars I know that are still due here, I believe. You know, if we could work something out.
All right, there might be some questions. I think, Jacob, if you could give us just a run-through of your report, we appreciate it.
Yeah, we have that land valued without structures at 10,000, and the way we come up with that is we have a majority of the land in Elkton City valued by the front foot, and I believe it's around $70 a front foot. There is an additional factor for the varying depths of the lots. This lot here is 165 foot deep, so therefore the value that we have it assessed at is 10,000.
Questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Krogman.
David, so your plan would be that if we were to sell it to you for the taxes, that then you would turn around and try to sell that to recoup the funds or the money that you've spent in getting rid of the buildings and demo and stuff.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
what
right?
we would like to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Commissioner Pierce, any questions?
No questions from me, thank you.
Any other commission questions or comments?
Well, I guess, are we open to a motion?
Yes, we are.
Okay, I'd make a motion that we sell it to the city of Elkton for the taxes that are due.
That amount was, put it in the motion.
4,000.
The amount is $44,2388 is the amount of the taxes.
Is that part of your main motion? I want the amount in there.
That amount, whatever.
That amount in there. Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right. Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, I guess, you know, I'd like to see this, you know, property have a new house on it, you know, get back on the tax rolls, you know, build some housing in Elkton that will last a long time, that will get, you know, another person living in Elkton or another family living in Elkton, and it's right across the street from the ballpark. I think it'd be a great spot. So I'd love to see this back on the tax rolls and with living on there too. I think that'd be best for everybody. I think selling it this way allows us to get our taxes back, but allows you to also maybe reimburse some of your funds and stuff too. So hopefully you're taking the risk on it, I guess. You know, we're not, and I think it'd certainly be a fair compromise to the city of Elkton.
I appreciate that. I know we're looking real hard at doing that if we could get it done.
Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Boersma?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next scheduled meeting is ways away, so let's move on to item E, the
Thanks, Dave.
local.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Local Emergency Management Performance Grant, better known as the LEMPG 2020 briefing. Mr. Hill.
Good morning again. The LEMPG is known, for anyone that was the chair previously under me, that's known as the State and Local Agreement, SLA. Basically, they revamped it and gave it a new name for it. And I passed out a little sheet on it. Talks about it's the single funding, operating, and reporting instrument for the accomplishment for what we do locally, so the state of South Dakota can report that to the Federal Emergency Management Agency and justify the grants that we get. The state of South Dakota gets the large grant, then they have to subdivide it down into all the counties. Basically, that's done by population. They tell us how much money they're willing to give us. They do put out a work plan with various objectives that I have to accomplish during each quarter, such as the first one is administrative and finance, and that is brief the county commission on the new LEMPG by the end of the fourth quarter. And since that is Monday, that's why I'm here today. And Some of the other stuff, like the hazard identification, risk assessment, and consequence analysis, known as the THIRA, we've completed that, and that's just waiting their approval. The hazards mitigation, we've got a pre-disaster mitigation plan that we contracted the first district. That's been written, and it's waiting approval. So our operational planning, incident management, everything, training, exercises, evaluation. It's broke down for the year 2020, there's 2,016 hours. I have to document that I work 1,512 hours of that as emergency management hours. Richard has to document 504 hours dedicated to emergency management for us to retain our funding. Salary and benefits are also prorated. We have withstood audits in the past with the finance office. They've come up and they look at our, back then it was a state and local agreement. They look at our documentation, and thanks to the finance office, we've always been able to document it properly. They do most of the work on the hours and the salary and benefits, and all I do is sit there and multiply it by, or divide it by 75 and 25, and so that all works out good. We are under a FEMA declaration now for our March storms. Richard and my salaries cannot be used due to us being in the LEMPG. You can only get federal funding from one agency, such as if you ever, we used to get Department of Transportation grants. All my time on that could not be counted towards emergency management time. You just, the feds, you can't get funding sources from two different feds for the same thing. And other than that, it's going to continue on. I do timesheets, and those are brought before the county chairman of the county commission. The main thing on the state and local agreement is it's the responsibility of the county commission chairman to make sure we abide by all the agreements. And I'm the one that does the work on the program. Any questions?
Any questions on the agreement?
Thank you.
Hearing no questions, Bob, you do the census update for us also?
I can. The main South Dakota representative from the census stopped by the office yesterday. He had just talked to Mike Struck downstairs. So the Brookings area complete count committee is getting started, and I don't have the date of the first meeting yet, but as soon as I get that, I'll be more than happy to pass it on to Ms. Stephenson so she can pass it out to the whole board. But we do plan on, the plan is for us to, I've got $500 in the 2019 budget to spend, and I plan on doing that mostly on probably town and country advertising. We'll probably go on, I really want to wait to the first meeting of the complete count committee to figure out what focus they want before we put anything in the paper, but we still got plenty of time to spend that advertising money by the end of the year.
Okay. Any questions on the census from the commission? No? Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
All right, item A, we already bumped that one up in regular business, so we'll go to item B. It was an action to approve resolution number 19-44, a resolution to continue support for the First District Association of Local Governments during fiscal year 2020, which is October 1st of 2019 to September 30th of 2020. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments? The only comment I would make is they've helped us a lot with a lot of projects in last year. I think it's almost a bargain. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Krogman?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item C is an action to approve resolution number 19-45, a resolution authorizing the purchase of construction equipment from the state of South Dakota, contract 17286. It's a bid process. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments? Any questions at all? Brian, anything on this one?
We're updating some of our equipment. We're going to be replacing a older skid loader, and we will be surplusing that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Johnson?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item D is an action to approve resolution number 19-46, a resolution authorizing the purchase of heavy construction equipment with related accessories, attachments, and supplies through the Sourcewell, formerly National Joint Powers Alliance bid process. Is there a motion to approve?
So, second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments? Anything on this one, Brian?
Yes, this loader will not be taking delivery until after the first of the year, so this will be out of the 2020 budget.
Okay.
Mr.
Any other
Chair,
questions?
will you just let me know who motioned and second that?
Last one?
We'll get back to you on that.
I heard Krogman motion and I heard Jensen second.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments or questions? Not, we'll call the roll.
Pierce?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item E is an action to approve agreement number 19-63, the 2019 Brookings County Hazardous Materials Plan. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded by, motion made by Krogman, seconded by Boersma. Maybe I should say that every time. Motion been made and seconded. Any comments? Bob, do you have some comments?
Yeah, this plan was last done in 2014. We received a federal grant to have it updated by the first planning district, and they submitted it to us a couple weeks ago. The local emergency planning committee chairperson, Pete Bolger, and myself took a look at it, and we approved it and sent it to this board with recommendation that you guys approve it.
Thank you for the report. Any questions or comments from the commission? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item F is an action to approve agreement 1964, an application for occupancy of right-of-way of county highways made by Sioux Valley Energy in Laketon Township. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments? Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item G is an action to approve agreement number 19-65, an application for occupancy of right-of-way of county highways made by the city of Elkton. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Are there any comments? I guess this one will wait for Brian's comments on the occupancy of right-of-way for county highways made by the city of Elkton.
The
Any
city of
comments?
Elkton, I was hoping Dave would stick around for this, but this is part of their drainage they put in earlier this year. They're just tying this all together. Their stormwater that's gotten into their sewer system, they're pumping down to their pond south of town. This is all just kind of tying everything together a little bit farther to the north. So I've been talking and working with him through this as he's been going through this. Like mentioned earlier, this is all approved by the DNR. So no effect to our road. When this pipe is not being used to pump water, it's going to sit dry. It's just for in times of flood events.
Questions or comments? Answered by the DNR, knew about it. Okay, with none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item H is an action to approve a request to fill vacancy for a part-time 4-H program assistant in the 4-H office. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
A motion been made and seconded. Any comments, questions from the commissioners?
So we had somebody resign. Is that
Yes.
okay? One of, and we have
Yes,
two.
we have two, and one of them resigned.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item I, action to approve a request to fill vacancy for a part-time membership assistant at the Brookings County Outdoor Adventure Center. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments on this one?
Just comment on this, where we have part-time people that are trying to fill in, but they're not working their full 19 hours. They're willing to work maybe 8, 9, 10, and so there'll be times there where Kristen is having to cover front desk there, and just because there's not enough people to pull from, similar to what the sheriff and Bart were talking about too. So we've encouraged her to widen the pool of part-timers. So if there's multiples that will only do 8, 9, 10 hours, that we have multiple to choose from that can fill in the gap to make sure that doors are open consistently at the OAC. So that's why we are continuing to do these part-time employees.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item J is an action to declare a 2013 Ford Explorer as surplus property to be sold via online auctions. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. Any comments on the Explorer? Sheriff's not here. Was it Sheriff's?
Yep, so yeah, this 2013 Ford Explorer is coming from the sheriff's office. I don't know a whole lot about it, other than he wants to put it on the surplus sale to get rid of it. And I think it is in the way at the highway department. So we would like to not wait for an entire year to sell this. I would rather just get it on the surplus sale, get it out to the newspapers, and really just try to get the value out of it.
I believe this one is a wrecked vehicle also.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item K is a discussion on Samara Avenue in the city of Volga. We don't have anybody here from the city of Volga.
No, if you recall, we had that discussion. Brian and Mike and I met with several representatives, and I don't think we'd asked them to come. We had we were going to update what we had discussed and see if there was any interest at the board at this level to participate in a future project potentially with them, not knowing exactly what that looks like yet.
And Brian was there. Go ahead and give us your take on their request.
With the development and whatnot going on the west side of Volga there, they're looking at taking over approximately a half-mile stretch or a little better mile stretch of County Road number 5, south of Highway 14. They're going to be looking at improving their storm sewer there, and we have no definitive costs yet, but I think their outlook on it is if we do participate in this project, that at the completion of this project, they would maintain full control, maintenance for the eternity of that road.
I think some of the key points on it are, one, once we turn that road over to them, we have to change the state map, road maps, because it's no longer our highway, it's a road, it's first mile of it's theirs. I caution them that they take that road, it's in perpetuity. They're not giving it back to us, so they're going to maintain it for a long time, but it is part of the city in many respects. They also, our participation, their request was at least what it would cost us to do some maintenance on the road in the next year or two. Was that the request? I don't know what the dollar amount of that was, but
we had deferred paving through town there, if you recall. Starting south of town, we deferred paving through there. It was approximately 4,200 feet. I looked back at the bid. It was roughly around, give or take 300,000 that we would have spent paving that from that point south all the way to Highway 14.
And my belief is there was a request would we participate at that level. Their request is this is like 2021 before we could ever get to this point, so it's a ways down the road because they haven't done their engineering, they haven't done any of their. They just want to know, are we interested in participating at a level of what it would have cost us anyway in the next couple of years, and then they take over the road. It's probably really a pretty good deal for us long term. And I think it's good for the community because they can control what they want to do with that road as far as sidewalks, other decorative lights, and whatever they want to do. Is that kind of what we got out of the meeting?
Yeah, that was basically the gist. I think they just wanted to see if we were open to the discussion. We are chip sealing that currently. This project has not been awarded, so I don't feel that we could afford to defer maintenance any longer as this road pavement's aging. We are chip sealing it. We're looking at, you know, right around $14,000 to $15,000 to do that process. But most likely by the time that this project would happen, you know, we're not out a whole lot.
I think it's important we maintain it until it becomes there, so.
Correct.
At this point, their request for us is, will we participate? They don't have a definitive number. They just ruled out what would it have cost you to maintain it in the next couple of years with the 300,000. So that's just, you know, that's a negotiable figure as we go down the road and they get their engineering studies done and figure out what it costs them to do it. They need to obviously get that through their city council first and foremost. But so is there any objection to or any interest in participating with them in the road project?
I guess I got a question, Brian. How far south does this project go?
And that's kind of open to
discussion
yet too.
Discussion.
There's some potential development on the south end of town there, but it's limited by that creek. We stopped paving right before that bridge, that's, you know, to the south. So it might not go all the way to that bridge.
That's what I was wondering, if they were willing to take over the drainage structure there.
Yeah. But there again, everything's kind of in the planning and development stage yet.
Yeah.
So,
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Pierce.
And I just want to remind everybody, because Commissioner Bartley and Commissioner Boersma were not on there when we went and toured, the commission went and toured this maybe 4 years ago and had some conversations with the city of Volga at that time. And I support everything that Commissioner Bartley said. I think this is a project that we should encourage them to move forward on, and that we should make a financial contribution, but I don't know what that dollar amount is. This would be a good resolution of a problem over there for both the county and for the city.
Commissioner Krogman.
So are they asking us to give them the road?
That would be part of the proposal, as I understand it, because they would invest most of the money in this project, and they asked if they would take over the road. And yeah.
Okay. I guess I'm not sure if that's, I mean, my first thought is, do we want to give up a road that is connected on both sides to county roads? That if something happens, they close that road up, we don't have access to our county road going south. Or anything like that. It's. I guess I look at it similarly to the state of South Dakota going through the city of Brookings. Runs through Brookings. We maintain it. We do all that kind of stuff. But the state still has that highway, I think.
Well, they tried several years ago to give it to the city if the city would take it after they improved 6th Street, and the city decided that in perpetuity it would cost them a lot of money to maintain it and decided not to do that. So that would have been an example of a section. Apparently there are some communities that have done that. I can't specifically remember the discussion of which communities have done that and taken over, or after it's been improved, take it over, because it gets that off the state's maintenance program, but it becomes part of the city's maintenance program. So, and the conversation we had with Volga is, you know, it is a big expense in perpetuity to maintain the road. But I think there are examples across the state, and we can research those where they have had that section of highway in a community taken over, even though it's not contiguous. It splits it, so to speak. I would have to ask Brian, is that a maintenance nightmare for the county to stop at a certain point in plowing?
I guess the biggest concern I had, and I mentioned this in the meeting that we did have, obviously any of the utilities under that new construction project would be owned and maintained by the city. And say we're plowing snow through there and we fill up their storm sewer with salt sand, who's liable? Whereas if there's one owner, you can only point the finger at yourself. And I guess that's my opinion on it, is You know, there's several examples out there, like you mentioned. I don't feel that we're gonna be cutting ourselves off, so to speak. We're gonna be looking at a new construction here. It'd be several years down the road before we'd have to worry about something like that.
And I just don't know, like I said, down the road, snow removal, they don't move the snow, and so we try to move the snow, but then we don't have access. Or if the road itself deteriorates in town, and we've kept up ours, and they haven't been able to keep up theirs for whatever reason, does that affect our ability to get there? And so, again, maybe playing a little bit of devil's advocate here, or should we be giving up control of that road, to where it's going? There's just,
and I understand your concern there too, but I look at the city of Brookings. We have to drive through city streets to get to the south side of town. You know, we do work together in that aspect. You know, we're not just gonna lift up our plow and drive around or drive through it. You know, we work together to try to provide the service that people are paying taxes for. You know, if we're there before the city to get to the south side of town, you know, we're driving through their roads with our plow down just because we're there. You know, I kind of look at this as the same aspect. Currently, right now, they maintain all the side streets, so they're driving on our road. Their plow may be there prior to ours being able to get there, and then of course we drive back by and fill in the side streets again sometimes, but with all the snow we had last year. But you know, we do attempt to work together on that, you know, not just only, you know, Brookings, all the communities.
Was there any concerns with the load limits?
The load limits,
being you got a bean plant, a couple elevators there. If
the load limits are placed on the south side of town currently, outside of city limits, because we do not have jurisdiction inside city limits, even though it's our road. So they are technically supposed to be placed on the south side of town. So currently, right now, this road is a road that does get load limited. But as far as the city putting up load limit signs, that would be at their discretion.
that's what I'm saying, that the city chose to put load limits on their stretch of road, it could affect our highway.
Right. But inside city limits, technically, right now.
You can do it anyway.
They can do it anyway right now. So nothing changes there.
I guess that surprises me we can do that.
Any objection from anyone with continuing discussions with them with a mindset that we'd like to participate?
Again, I don't have a problem participating in what we would have done, and that kind of stuff. That's not the point of it. I just, in my mind, I'm just not sure we want to give up ownership of it, I guess. That's just my thought.
I support continuing discussions.
Okay. With that, we'll let the City Council and Volga know that we're interested in continuing the discussion and participating in some manner. As far as whether or not we turn the road over or not, I guess we'll have to consider that still. But we'll participate if we move forward so that they can move forward with their planning and engineering. Anything else on that? We'll move on to our strategic plan, review of the strategic plan. Stacy, do you want to cover that for us?
The strategic plan, part of that is reviewing it a couple different times throughout the year. At this time, I don't have any changes. It was included in your packet. If you've had a chance to look through it and have some recommendations for changes, or if you want to dig into it a little deeper at some point, I guess now's the time to have that discussion. Give me some direction on where you would like to go.
All circuits are busy. Please try your call again later. Announcement 8, switch 5 to 8-2.
We lost her.
I assume she thought we were done with most action items. Either that or her voice changed. We'll continue. Go ahead. Unless you want to try her back.
Hold on, let me just... But that was just essentially, that was it. I don't, like I said, I included it with your, the plan was included in the packet if you had a chance to look at it. If you want, I guess I'm looking maybe for some direction from the board. If there are any changes that you would like to see, let me know, or if you're comfortable with it at this point. I did not have any changes at this time that I could see.
Any questions or comments on that? Okay. Do the commission director's report, Stacy.
I think I'm going to try to call Leanne back here.
So we're trying to get Commissioner Pierce back on the phone.
Thanks.
Are you back?
I'm back. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we're at commission report. Or not that, well, Stacy's report, excuse me.
Let me get to that point. Sorry about that. Included with my report were a number of notices of awards for the big program. There was one that wasn't funded. I don't know if, Brian, if you had any more information on that, if you'd received those. I believe you were copied on those notices of awards.
We were short on points on that 8th one. So we got booted out by about 0.7 on points.
So very close.
So very close, but I feel we were very successful on the other 7.
Also attached to my report is a letter from landowner Roger Sunday regarding the land. He owns the land near the culverts at the outlet for Lake Sinai. There has been some ongoing issues there with drainage concerns in that area. So that letter addresses the privately owned land that's maybe in question there. So if you have any comments to make there, but hopefully that will maybe address some of the concerns moving forward. Hobo Days is coming up October 5th. I think I'd been sending you some information on that. Commissioner Bartley, they'd like your car at the Ag Heritage Museum by 8:30 that morning for the parade. It sounds like you're going to be a fairly early entry in that. So the parade starts at 9:30, and we can discuss if you want to hand out candy. I'll collect money from you, and I'll go get that candy for you to hand out. $20, I believe. Everyone's opening their wallets. All I have to do is ask. Asking you shall receive. It can wait too, no big deal. So I'm attached also to my report was the 2020 proposed commission calendar for next year already, believe it or not. Just some things to note. You'll see in June and November, the first meetings of those months are actually on Thursdays, scheduled for Thursdays instead of Tuesdays, and that's due to canvassing the votes from the elections that, the primary and the general elections on those particular months. We've gone to doing it that way instead of having a commission meeting Tuesday and then meeting for a special session on Thursday. We just do the whole entire meeting Thursday instead to then canvass the votes. So if anybody has any particular heartburn about that, the only time where we're getting away from that first and third, like I said, the first and third Tuesdays, March we do because there is a conference that commissioners attend. That's the legislative conference out in DC. So we avoid that conference, so it'll be the 2nd and the 4th Tuesdays there, but that works out well because there are the 5 Tuesdays there in March. Then again, June 4th is the Thursday. September, we do the 1st and the 4th due to the SDACO convention that we just actually, most of us attended last week. That also gives Vicki and I a little bit more time to do the annual budget, which would be approved then on the 22nd. October is fine. November 1st, again, Thursday, canvassing the votes. Instead of meeting on the 3rd, we'd meet on the 5th. And then December, we would have 3 meetings on that 29th is kind of our end of the year wrap-up meeting. So any questions on that? Otherwise, I'll move forward with that. A couple other things coming up. We had the County Road and Bridge Tour, kind of round 2, is scheduled for next Tuesday, a week from today. We're going to start at 8:30 in the morning. We'll probably go at least a couple of hours and hit the sites that we missed on the first round last month. So we'll again be leaving from the highway shop. We discussed Hobo Day activities. The 14th offices are closed in honor of the Native American Day holiday. So then getting into October 17th, we had initially, probably 6 to 8 weeks ago, we scheduled department head reviews for Thursday, October 17th. Now as that date is getting closer, there are 3 different events that have gotten scheduled that I think several of the commissioners may want to attend. One is the South Dakota Planners Association Conference that's actually being held here in town. Then the local roads conference, that's out in Rapid City. And I know they've got some information, I think I've maybe passed that along, that commissioners can attend free of charge. At least the registration fee is waived for commissioners if you want to attend that. And then the Brookings Innovation Summit is also going on that day from 9 to 3 here in town at the Wilbert Square Event Center. So because of that, not only does it take potentially commissioners, but I know like Bob would be attending the Planners Conference, and I think Brian plans to attend the road conference out in Rapid City, so that takes a couple of department heads away from being able to complete their reviews on that date too. So I'm looking at maybe trying to schedule a different date. I think I had sent you some ideas. I'm looking at maybe, I don't know what the afternoon of October 22nd looks like. Kind of looking at that last week of October. Ryan's shaking his head already.
22nd, 23rd, I'm out of town.
Okay. The 24th.
Oh, okay with 24th.
What's that?
24th is fine for me.
Angie shaking her head no. How about the 28th? 29th?
I am gone on the 28th.
28th, 29th, 30th? 31st, Halloween. Everybody dresses up for...
What day of the week is that, Stacey?
That is a Thursday, Leanne.
Okay.
Anybody have issues with Halloween, the 31st?
Works.
And do you want, the plan was to do, to start in the afternoon. What would you prefer? Do you want to start in the morning, or would you rather start at noon and go into the afternoon, or start at 8:30 and wrap up? It's going to take probably 4 hours, give or take. Does it matter?
8:30.
8:30. Leanne, does that work?
I think so. I don't have my calendar here, and I will call you back when I get my calendar if there's a problem. But right now, I can count on that.
Okay. On October 31st, department heads that are here, does that work? Getting a thumbs up from the couple of us that are here. Great. And then I also sent out some information. As you know, we did the change with the health insurance, and Sherry Matthews and another representative from Blue Cross Blue Shield Wellmark will be here Thursday, October 3rd. They're going to be 6 times throughout that day, about 30-minute long sessions to go over changes to our health insurance coverage. All benefit eligible employees are asked to attend one of these sessions if at all possible. And the times are 8:15, 9:15, 10:15, 1:30, 2:30, 3:30. And I can send you those times. All sessions will be held here next door in the community room. So if you do get the county's health insurance coverage, you are strongly encouraged to attend one of those sessions if possible. If you absolutely cannot, please, visit with me and we'll figure out a time to get your paperwork filled out maybe prior to that, so we're ready to go. Or I think I hope I think the tentative plan is to try to record one of those sessions so that people can watch it back. Also, Wellmark will be here at the health fair on October 10th. That's coming up. So you can visit with them there in person if you'd like. And that is just one thing I think I got left off my calendar. The 10th of October is our health and wellness fair here that morning. So, and I'll get more information out to you on that too. But that starts at I think 7:30 and goes until about 7:30 to 10:30 on the 10th. So, other than that, I think I've covered all of my bullet points, unless you have any other questions for me.
I have none, but at this point, I'd like to declare recess for 5 minutes before our report from BKV.
Stacy, are you going to call me back then?
Yes, I can do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Yellow.
Okay, we are getting ready to be back here.
Perfect.
Call the meeting back to order. Our 10:30 presentation is an update from BKV on our project for the detention center. So we'll let your team come up. One of the things that we'll probably ask you to do is kind of pass the mic around is if you have other comments. So Commissioner Pierce is on the phone and she doesn't hear it well if you don't get really close to the mic.
Be glad to. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Bruce Schwartzman with BKV.
Aaron Johnson with BKV.
Lance Munson with Construction Engineers.
David Horner with BKV. And we also have behind us one of our SDSU graduates, one of our lead mechanical engineers, Mike Dugan, in case we have any mechanical questions for Mike. But anyway, so good morning. As I mentioned, what we're looking to do is we're in the process now of wrapping up what's considered the design development phase, and we've been working diligently with the Sheriff's Office to go through a lot of the planning aspects associated with the details of the jail. And actually, after this meeting today, we've been meeting with them to go through some mechanical systems, some details about the jail, and finalize some of those refinements of the materials and the layouts and the systems. For the Commissioners meeting today, what we've laid out for the agenda was just any follow-ups you all have from previous meetings, questions that have come up since the last review, and then we were going to get into, excuse me, where we are with the site plan, the intent for the site plan design, elevation relationships, horizontal banding, relationships to the courthouse, materiality relationships, the exterior design. We've got a couple options we want to review with you on the exterior design, where we are on the project schedule as a big picture, just to understand the overall project schedule, and then Lance with construction engineering also.
All circuits are busy. Please try your call again later. Announcement 8, switch 5, 2.
We're going to have you continue in the interest of time. Commissioner Pierce got dropped off. She's on the phone, so
okay.
just go ahead and
just go ahead and continue.
We'll try and get her
Okay.
back here.
And then Lance with construction engineers, they put together a construction estimate. Again, where we are within the design process, it's a schematic estimate. So it's going to have certain contingencies. It's going to be at a high level of analysis. Once we finish the design development phase, we'll come back to the board with a more refined estimate. So again, it's a high level, and be glad to discuss that as we go through it.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, the person you are trying to reach has a voicemail box.
So moving right along, this first slide is just showing the precedent of the Children's Museum directly to the northwest of the historic courthouse. We're using this as just a landscape and urban amenity precedent. This was recently done. The raised planters there and the decorative light poles, as well as the brick paving that shows pedestrian crossings, we thought were all appropriate and ideas that we're going to incorporate into the way we're developing our site design.
So you'll see, as we move into that, I'll speak loud, as we move into the design, you'll see where we took some of those precedents that are being done around the site and brought that into your site. Again, to help to blend it in, to make it part of the environment, not as a distraction from the environment, but really help it to blend into the environment.
And it was BKV's understanding that there was an attempt to establish sort of a pedestrian promenade or walkway along that northern edge. And this, again, just provides the continuum of that experience. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see zoomed in the context of our site, where again, we're calling out those decorative streetlights, we're calling out brick pavers at vehicle and pedestrian crossing conditions, as well as those raised planter beds with those decorative curbs. Planting areas are also articulated around the whole edge of the site, and the site has been developed appropriately to sort of fit sort of a more beautified public realm experience that will support the site. Yep, so the decorative streetlights, again, that are on the north edge of the site are keeping in the context of those lights in front of the Children's Museum, just bringing that language to the detention center itself. can go on to the next slide. Yeah, feel free to interrupt at any point.
Thank you.
So moving on, here we're discussing the first option of the two precast options that we're going to discuss today. And we're looking at sort of elevational relationships between the existing courthouse and the proposed first option. Really here we're looking at proportionality and trying to draw proportions that were established in the original historic courthouse and sort of evoke those proportions in the massing of the new addition. So the base relationship that you'll see sort of on the western edge of the western facade we're looking at carries a proportional relationship that is present in the existing courthouse, as well as that sort of first level of the entablature is again directly a proportional relationship from the existing courthouse. We're bringing in windows in both pairs and triptychs, which are pulling fenestration relationships from the existing courthouse. And then we're trying to sort of minimize the openings on this facade because the openings are not supposed to be primary entrances into the building.
Sure.
So I'm going to apologize because I can get shaky. But yeah, look at this. So that base to this, yeah, thanks, buddy. You drive. Yes.
There's a plinth that's related on the court.
Bruce, can you talk into mic? With Leanne being on the phone, she can't hear if you're not speaking into the mic.
So what we try to do is you can see on the courthouse side, on this right-hand image, there's a plinth, there's a base relationship to that, and Dave, right, correct? And then as you go up, there's a proportion to that kind of first element of the building. It breaks up the massing, creates a nice rhythm for the height, and based on the relationship of it. Well, the courthouse, of course, is a much taller building than the proposed addition to the law enforcement center. So the playfulness is how do you utilize that? How do you respect some of that and bring it into this building? So in this option, what you see is it's a proportionality issue. This base here, this darker band here, is reflecting that same base relationship here, but in a smaller proportion. And then the same thing, this midline element with the windows in here and that materiality and the way it's done is, again, respecting the same banding proportion here. So while the horizontal bands don't tie directly from the courthouse, they respect that same level of proportionality that this is. Now, and you'll see in the renderings too as we get into it, this is not so much overall design as much as it's particular architectural relationship of elements. And so when we get into the overall design, you'll see that a little bit more. But in the next one, before we go in again, you see some banding. And I think in the precast, we have the ability to do like acid etched, sandblasted. You can get exposed aggregates. You could do inlay of materials. Over at the university, they've done a number of housing projects with brick inlay. But we've gone with a fairly traditional kind of acid etched approach to create a textural difference between different areas. I think, Dave, this was acid etched. This might be sandblasted down here. And then the reveals, these banding will be created with reveals, or the bottom band, if we're trying to express it, can actually be an add-on piece of precast that they apply to the face. So again, it's trying to work with the precast technology and create a nice kind of rhythm to the building. If we go to the next one, the next option then actually did play a little bit more off of the base. So you do have a base relationship. There's that band where the entablature, the base element is here, and there's a horizontal relationship. In this particular option, and it actually worked out fairly well because there's a grade drop here, you have a door here. So basically over 7'4" or so above that door is where we're seeing this time out, even if the door is slightly adjusted. And we're doing this as an express band that's applied to it. Then we stayed with the same element here, so you have another piece here that broke up that massing, and we're seeing this as a recessed band across here, across this piece, again with these reveals here. So this one, in this option, it picks up on the idea and the patterning of the building a little bit more. Now, right now we haven't defined sandblasting versus acid etch, but we would, I think, work with that. I think, in my opinion, we could still do the sandblasted base, the acid etched here, and create that tonal differential. The other thing we've done different in the two designs too is, in lieu of putting windows in certain relationships, if you look on the courthouse, you'll see in certain areas in the courthouse, it's hard to see in some of these, there's a relief. There's an area where the stone is actually set in and you get a slight shadow pattern. Well, that's the intent in some of these. I think the proportions should line up with the door a little bit more, and we could work with that, but I think the idea is to have more of a relief pattern that works with that rather than a window. Again, to try to break up the facade and do things to make it feel less massive, and as well as relate to the courthouse. So I think if you go to those were the two studies of kind of horizontal or massing relationship as it related to the courthouse. Dave, is there anything else you want to add to that?
That pretty well summarizes the concepts. We want to keep moving. This slide is to show us, again, to bring to the county's attention, the board's attention, where we were previously with the masonry cavity wall construction. And it's been my understanding that we've been directed to look at precast as an option. So this is just to remind us of what the design had been. Again, you see some of these ribbing elements that were wrapping the building that are drawing from the language of the entablature of the existing courthouse. These brick portals were frames that were coming from the material language of the existing LEC and trying to blend the two materials into a composition that felt more cohesive. And again, we looked at windows that were paired here and high. You'll see these again in some of the iterations that move forward. Here, those windows were high for security concerns, and on the western facade, they're low to make the building feel more approachable and friendly from that western approach.
And I would like to add that, so what the iterations and the changes of design you're seeing is because it would be very difficult to do the same level of material and relief in precast that you can do in a cavity veneer system. So if you were to build this out of a veneer system, you can do this out of precast. It becomes a lot more complex and a lot more costly. You get your savings in precast by the repetitive nature of the panels. So anyway, that's just in case anybody's wondering why aren't we doing the exact same thing out of precast. It's really difficult.
So on the next slide, we'll see the building sort of from the western approach. Again, here the windows are lower. It lets the building feel more approachable, but we still have this heavy plinth that's picking up on the plinth language from the existing courthouse, that's wrapping the whole building, letting it feel grounded and heavy in the way it touches the ground. In the landscaping here, you still see some of those pedestrian realm amenities that we have brought into the designs and are still maintained in both options moving forward. And here now we're looking at option one, which is a little more articulated. That upper band with the windows in it would have potentially some inset material, an inset stone, which would be reminiscent of the language of the existing courthouse. And then the groupings of windows themselves are surrounded in a sort of a sandblasted precast condition. There's a acid etched cornice to the top of the building, and then a sandblasted base entablature, which picks up on some of those banding datum languages, datum points from the existing courthouse as well. There's a bronze canopy that sort of embraces the two entrance points, and some signage which identifies the detention center and its main public point of entry. You have the 24-hour visitation door next to it. And other main doors on the facade are just maintenance points of entry. And let's move on to the next slide. So again, here the windows are low, they're allowed to feel approachable, the points of entry are minimized, they're given a transom condition above them to allow all those openings to have a head height that is in relation to that datum line, and that datum line is carried into the overhead doors as it moves across the north facade. You'd have that limestone embedded material in the precast, which again is playing off and sort of reminiscent of that existing material condition. And then this sandblasted precast allows the precast system to sort of get quieter and soften in its language as it approaches the existing courthouse and gives it some respect and reverence.
And while the colors might vary a little bit between the addition to the courthouse, the intent is to have the material color very similar. So there's a slight tonal difference. The intent is they're very similar.
Very monochromatic building approach in both options. So here in option 2, again, you're seeing these datum lines which are established at the existing courthouse and do not leave those existing datum conditions. So what happens at a 7'3" condition on the other side of the building becomes sort of a 4-foot condition as it approaches this facade, this eastern facade. But that datum is maintained all the way around the addition. The ribbing relationship, again, is maintained all the way around the building. It disappears at this sort of projected corner volume. That corner volume is allowed to be quiet and just carries that upper and lower datum line, and the ribbing itself just dissolves there. The ribbing would also dissolve at the entrance piece into the main detention center. And there again, the building could be quieter. We're showing those recessed panel conditions with a little bit of color articulation in them.
And so what you'll see is while this option picks up on the datum, the horizontal banding of the courthouse, it loses the relationship as you get on this side because there's nothing that really ties it, plus the stepping of the various floors. But as we go to the next one, Stacy, if you pull up that one is where it's much more visibly connected. That's where you can actually see that there's a band relationship of the courthouse to this datum that's going on here.
In this view, you'll also notice that there's sort of a heavy lintel applied above the overhead door. That lintel and sort of the recessed panel are being shown in sort of the same material language, thinking of that as either a sandblasted condition, something that will allow the aggregate within the precast to sort of catch the light, along with that datum band to sort of allow it to be articulated from the rest of the wall body. And again, the sort of primary pedestrian amenities are maintained through both design options. I'm open to any questions, comments, or concerns. You'll notice that there's no glazing in this second option at all. The glazing has been replaced with recesses to sort of articulate the idea of fenestration, but not add extra cost.
We'll go to the next one. Yes, sir. Yes.
I have a question on the northwest exposure on option 1. Are those windows functional then, or?
No, not functional, no. They would be into the rear chase of the cells. And so, if anything, they would be providing some daylight, but there would be no actual visible access to that space.
Go to the west view, one of the first views. That one there, maybe.
Are you asking us which one we like better?
We are. There's time. You know, we're still going through the design development and refining stuff. At some point in time, we will need direction from the county as to which direction you prefer.
Gotcha. Okay.
And one of the questions I have at some point is, do we have more of a workshop to go through this a little bit more? I mean, a workshop might be a little bit more conducive to discussing the design direction and where things are going in a little more comfortable setting. That's up to the commissioners as well.
I would prefer that as an option, to be able to kind of workshop through it a little bit and have a little more interactive discussion.
That would be a discussion in the timeline. I think what we've really accomplished here today is the fact that the precast that we chose as the option we preferred at the last presentation is the way to go. So I think we're there, and I like, I'm not an architect, but I like all the designs. Actually, there's a couple of elements of both that I like. I think the workshop is the way to go, but can we schedule that as quickly as possible? Maybe do a doodle poll again for a workshop.
Commissioner, if I could interject?
Yeah.
1 second, Mr. Chair. So we're looking at completing the design development documents on October 8th, and we present all those to the county at that point in time. We could pick one of the designs, proceed forward with it, knowing that we're still going to refine it, because it's not changing the massing of the building. The massing is still the way it is,
Right.
whether we pull a skin or a wall, minorly in or out to make some shadow or projection, we can do that. I would think after we send that on the 8th, maybe a week or so after it, maybe a week or so after that 8th or 16th or some date that works for the commissioners after that 8th, maybe we have a workshop after that. So whatever works for all of you. But that would probably be, and then give you all at least a week to see the documents and generate some questions, and we can go from there. Because then we're planning to do, really, in essence, a formal presentation of the design development documents, updated estimate schedule at that October 22nd meeting. So I think that interim workshop would probably work well.
We've had fun today trying to find dates for a lot of things. Any suggestions from any of the commissioners on a date?
In terms of scheduling?
So what dates are we looking at?
I think
Before
Commissioner-
the, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. So potentially 15th, 16th, 17th, or 15th, 16th, anything that works for you.
15th works for me at this point.
Me too.
Yeah.
Commissioner Pierce, are you still with us? No.
And I apologize. So I can't look at that. But
We'll try to do the 15th, and you can check your calendar. Would that be a morning also? We could do
Whatever works for the commissioners. I would assume at least a 2 to 3 hour period to be safe. Hopefully it doesn't take all of 3, but I would allow at least 2 hours so we have adequate time to really talk.
8:30?
I was mid-morning-ish, 9:30. So we're done by
9:30?
noonish, 12:30, so you have time to get here.
Could we do 1
Thank you,
o'clock?
Commissioner.
Well, I was going to say, could we do 1 o'clock, and that allows them to get here too, or?
I have to be somewhere else by 5 o'clock, so, and it's 2.5 hours away.
Okay.
So I feel your pain on the travel time.
9:30? On the 15th? Leanne, you'll have to check your schedule on that and let us know, but we're at this point, that's going to work for the rest of us. That works for the rest of us at this point. And we will have that in chambers or
I'll
community
find a
room?
room and let you know where we will be.
Okay. Stacy will figure out the location for that.
Stacy, if you could scroll down to the schedule, please. I'll briefly go through that, and then Lance can talk about the estimate and where we are with that. So from a very high level, and like I'd mentioned, we're issuing the design development package, which will be fairly detailed on October 8th. We'll do the workshop on the 15th, and then we're looking to come back to the board for kind of final discussion on October 22nd, and we can adjust that as the board sees fit from that workshop date. We're then going to go and spend 3 months, in essence, completing the construction documents. So from that October date out to end of January is when we'll plan on doing final construction documents. There will be a series of meetings during those as well to review final information, to make sure we picked up camera locations correctly, hardware information correctly, materials, all the things that we're going through in design development. It's a chance to circle back in construction documents, say, did we hear you well? Did we understand what you said? Here's what we've got in our documents. Is it correct? So it's a back check at that point in time. We do an internal quality review process. We'll be working with construction engineering for their input and review of the documents prior to putting the documents out for bid, either end of January, beginning of February. But I just do want to reiterate that that time frame of end of January, early February is an excellent time to bid projects. You typically see that's when contractors are starting to look for next year's work. So the time frame helps. You want to get as many contractors interested and providing proposals and bidding on the project as possible. So that time frame is in our opinion, very important. So you see, we issue the project, and then there's roughly about 2 months from when the project goes out to bid of actual award. There'll be a pre-bid meeting where we walk contractors through the facility, answer any questions. There'll be an addenda period to answer any information that should come up, and then we'll have a bid opening. Right now, it's shown as February 27th, whether or not that fluctuates a little bit, but there'd be a bid opening. Construction engineering would then go back and qualify and review the bids that were received to make sure they were appropriate and adequate, and then we come with recommendations to the council. So you can see that that whole period occurs into March rather, and then the project's being projected based on 2 phases. The first phase is the biggest piece of building the new addition around it. So the phase 1 basically taking, I think, was it 17 months? 17 months, I think? Was it? 15 months, excuse me. So phase 1 was about 15 months, and then about another 5 months or so to complete phase 2, which was primarily the remodeling. So, you know, if everything goes well, you know, come January of 2022, project's complete, everybody's moved in where they need to be, and it's all done.
Any questions on the time schedule? Any other questions for these gentlemen at this point in time?
Mr. Chair, we would like to give construction engineering a minute to go review the estimate and just from a high level where we are.
That's fine. Thank you.
Do you guys have paper copies?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead and swing the mic your way if you would. There we go.
Okay, I'm actually going to start at the bottom of the form where the total project budget is, because that's where people's eyes usually go to right away anyway. So that number is reflective of construction costs, which construction engineers is responsible for, as well as soft costs, which are costs that we are not responsible for. So I'll talk about the soft cost section first. This is usually developed with owner input as well as input from the architect to talk about the costs that the project will bear, but not through construction engineers. So you can see we've got architect and engineering fees, and then we have a lot of zeros in there for things like the phone system, the video visitation system, detention furniture. So some of those items are ones we're going to need to discuss with you and find out if they do need to be included in this bottom line, or if that cost comes from a different category. We do have just a budget placeholder for $200,000 for FF&E, which is fixtures, furniture, and equipment. So that would be like office furniture, chairs, desks, and such. And then we have just put in a 1% owner contingency. We like to see the owner have somewhere between 1% and 3% in their pocket, so that while construction is going on, that you see something you want to change that adds cost, then you've got a little bit of money in your back pocket to make those changes. Moving now to the top section, first in dark blue is the building construction costs, and we just have a few breakouts there to just give you an idea where the kind of how those costs are distributed. The green section below that is site construction, which on this project is fairly minimal because the site is pretty restricted. A lot of the earthwork costs that you might think about for the project happen within the building footprint, so they're covered up in the blue section. And then the light blue area in the middle is permits, bonds, and insurance, which are all basically percentage reflections of the building costs. That section also includes 10% design contingency, which is a healthy almost 1.2 million. That number is basically like a protection for design elements that haven't been captured yet in the drawings. I'd say it's worth noting that I feel like we have a pretty solid understanding of where this project is scope-wise. So I don't think we're going to have 1.2 million in items that we haven't already captured. But for this level of estimate, a 10% contingency is kind of an industry standard. So I think if I showed less than that, you know, the design team and those who have been involved in projects in the past might show concern there. So that that is an appropriate amount, I think, for the step we are at in design. It's worth saying, I guess, that typically at this stage, we'll normally be a little bit over budget. Part of the reason for that is we are trying to, you know, we're not just putting square foot costs at this. We're doing detailed estimates, and when the details aren't there, we're putting in what we expect to see there. I think we do a good job of capturing a lot of what the contingency is supposed to cover up in our estimate, because we are kind of filling in those gaps. So if the number on the bottom is a little bit higher and a little uncomfortable for you, I'd say the DD estimate will lower some of that design contingency when we have more details to reference and to say, you know, this is literally what's on paper, rather than saying this is what we think is going to be on paper. We'll also, at that time, reach out to a lot of subcontractors and suppliers to get a better look into what they forecast as the cost. You know, at this stage, like mechanical, electrical, for example, is a large part of the project cost. You know, we're looking at past costs, and we like at this point to hedge towards the higher end of what we expect to see or what we've seen in the past. So if you kind of compound those safe budgets along with the contingencies, they kind of, you know, pile on top of each other. So again, we would expect this to be worst case scenario number, not this is where we think the project's at and we need to be of high concern.
If I could add to one thing, so we will work with the county and develop the soft cost. We'll work with construction engineering. Based on our experience of other similar projects, we'll put together a detailed soft cost estimate of all the line items that we would expect with that. So we'll put that together. We are about 1.5 million. This is about 1.5 million above the budget we had presented some time ago. So it is a little bit higher, but I think like Lance said, any good estimator is never going to give you, it's not considered low bid. This is not a bid, this is an estimate. So any good estimator is never going to give you low bid because they don't want the project coming in over budget. So I think you're based on bidding conditions, based on scrutiny, and we will need to work with the board. At the end of the day, if there's a set number, we might need to look at some alternates to try to keep the budget in line as we can. So again, as we move forward, I think that'll be important, and that could be something we talk about at the workshop as well.
Thank you. Any questions for construction engineers?
Just a quick clarification for Lance in particular. The top section on building construction costs, I just want to make sure that the detention and food service line item is for specialty equipment, correct? So that's cells and things like that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
The detention furniture that I refer to in soft costs would be like day room tables and chairs, not cells and
right. But that's all that specialty equipment that goes into that.
Correct.
And then mechanical and electrical also includes all of our monitoring, security, access controls, all the crazy things that go along with that for detention facilities?
It does.
Okay.
Yep.
There's one last item I do want to bring up to the commissioner, sorry. And when Mike is here, our mechanical engineer today, one of the things we had recently found was that the boilers that are in the lower level law enforcement center actually serve the courthouse. Those boilers are past their life expectancy. Part of this project will end up picking up new boilers. Well, the new system as a whole will end up refeeding the courthouse. Just as an FYI to the board, it's a little bit of additional cost that we didn't anticipate initially, We'll figure that out, but we'll be able to share that. One option, and we can get into it more, would be to separate the courthouse entirely. I think it's a two-pipe system. It probably makes sense just to handle it all as one complex and continue to just put new equipment in to support it.
There's always continued maintenance expense with the courthouse also, so yeah, I think we'd entertain that. Any other questions for BKV or construction engineers? If not, I want to thank you for your presentation. We're getting long on the tooth here. Any questions that anybody watching the replays or the live presentation today, or those in attendance in the audience? This presentation will be on our website. Please go ahead and take a look at it. And if you have comments for any of the commissioners, I encourage you to talk to them about the design options, what you like and don't like about those options. So with that, thank you very much. We're going to move on to our state's attorney's office report.
In the last couple of weeks, just been working with Vicki and Stacy on the surplus property that the commission approved. As Vicki stated, we prepared those quitclaim deeds, so those are ready for your signature, Chairman Bartley. Also, there was a question that was asked whether or not we could deed that surplus property to a private citizen. In order for that to occur properly, there would have to be an exchange between the county and the property owner. We can't just sell that property or deed that property for a purchase price directly to the landowner. There would have to be an exchange. And if there isn't an exchange, there has to just be a public auction on that. So there was 2 properties, one in Sinai and one in Bruce, that we've prepared the quitclaim deeds on. And then there was a second property in the Volga area where we had a private landowner interested in buying it outright from the county. But for that property, although it's been declared surplus, we're going to have to do a public auction on it. So any questions on that?
Any questions?
Other than that, just to respond to Marty, I got 15 more felony convictions coming your way, Marty, this afternoon. So.
All right, with that, we'll go into commissioner reports. Do we have Commissioner Pierce on the phone?
You do, Mr. Chair, but I'm going to wait to do my commissioner report until next time, and I'll do the whole thing there when I'm in person. Thank you.
Duly noted. Commissioner Boersma.
The 16th and 17th, I was in Pierre with Commissioners Krogman and Jensen for the SDACO convention in Pierre. It was interesting as my first time attending. There's all kinds of different stuff from, quorum issues and legal stuff and planning and zoning things. And so I felt like I learned a lot. They probably have more to add to that, I'm sure. The 18th was a mental health coalition meeting at noon, and there will be some things coming out of that group that I think in November, if I'm correct, right, Dan? There'll be some events going on. There's a discussion about a community of resiliency award that we're looking at for Brookings, and I don't know if that includes the entire county or if that's the city of Brookings in particular, but there will be representation requested from both the city and the county for that meeting, and there will be more information coming on that. And then Sunday night, I was at the county staff night at Goodroots, and so just wanted to quick thank Jenna for putting that stuff together, and for those who came, we had a great night, and good pizza. Took a little bit. I think Goodroots was like busting at the seams. I think they made 90 some pizzas, and normally it's in the 30 to 40 range. So it was a really good evening. And so thanks to Jenna for organizing that. That would be my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Krogman.
Yes, again, was at the South Dakota Association of County Commissioners meetings, and there were some good meetings, good speakers there, and So I always learn a lot and always get reminded of things that we can do better too. So that's good. I'm glad we go to it when we can. And then yesterday, we had our BCOAC Advisory Council meeting at noon. We've got a date for that BCOAC will be closed down. It'll be the 21st, then the 22nd of October, and that's when also construction of the parking lot will take place. Also, we'll be mining the lead out of the range at that same time. So being closed down, same time works good to get a lot of stuff done. And so it will take probably at least a week to get the parking project done, pending weather. They will need to come in there and scrape and bring in fill and gravel and all that good stuff, and then put the layers of asphalt on top. Again, pending weather. But they're starting to see a ramp up of membership starting this time of the year, which is good. And so we're starting to see quite a few numbers. And yeah, that's kind of the big project over there, is that parking lot getting done. So that's all I have.
Commissioner Jensen.
On the 16th and 17th, attended the fall convention out in Pierre. Attended some meetings, 211 call centers. They basically, the services they provide. It was interesting that only about 22 counties in the state have this, but there was a lot of interest in joining the call center. LTAP gave an overview of the services they provide to all the cities and counties, and also had some state auditors, some updates on some bid laws. On the 18th, I did attend a Delta Chi supper event out along the bypass. Kind of interesting talking to the young individuals attending college and what their goals and everything. On the 19th, attended the chamber mixer at downtown. There was a lot of people there. It was great food. Also on the September 21st, Conservation District's breakfast that morning, well attended also. I did, on the 23rd, attended the meeting with Ryan out at the BCOAC Advisory Board. Everybody's looking forward to the parking lot being hard surfaced. It'll be a great addition to the facility. And the only other thing, I did have a call from president of Hendricks Development up off our County Road 35 pertaining to the spur of 487th Avenue that actually serves a public lake access and the lake development. There's some maintenance issues, and I think maybe in the future we'll be hearing that at the commission. That's it.
Thank you. My report on the 6th, I attended the Brookings Behavioral Health Open House, and it has a new name. What is the new name, Angie?
Brookings Behavioral Health and Wellness.
And Wellness. I knew there was another number there. I was impressed, very impressed with the changes they made to the facility with the limited resources they have, and it's a much more welcoming place to go. I commend that entire board for the work they've done on that. On the 10th, I attended the White House meeting, the Western Region states of, there were 8 states, basically North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Washington, Oregon, Utah, and Alaska, I believe. I'll probably miss one. In attendance, we were probably about 80 people. Different department heads came in, different presentations were made. A lot of them were pertaining to the Department of Interior, took up probably the most time, and a lot of that involved logging out in Oregon and Washington and oil drilling in Alaska. Things that came our way were the transportation discussions. Again, we had a lot of questions, a little bit of time to ask those, and well, even though I put my hand up, I didn't get a chance to ask about the 20th Street overpass. However, there was some discussion about some of those build grants, and the priority projects will probably get funded, and we'll see how that works out for us in the future. We did get a list of phone numbers for each of the departments that are direct phone numbers to direct people, not just people who can handle things. There seems to be a really big push in government out there at this time to react to requests for permits and other types of things that don't take 788 days to get heard, trying to cut those requests in half, get answers to people's requests. One of the things in the Department of Interior, the Secretary talked about when he took over, he went third floor office building. They had the second and third floors, and of course they lease all the office buildings out there, and he went through all the offices, and the one that struck him the most that he talked about was the office of wild horses and pearls, and talked to the director of that particular place. Had been in place for about 30 years. Asked if he had been out there, didn't know he had a bureau, or 2 office spaces for that department. He hadn't been out west for several years because of travel budget cuts. So he has proposed and has already have action that that particular office is going to Western Colorado and will be headquartered there in the future, so that travel budgets won't be a concern, and they'll be in the areas that that they're working with. So he's also moving somebody to Alaska. He's moving somebody from public western lands, primarily out west. So they're vacating one of the floors, which didn't make the people that own the building happy. Their leases were up and they're moving out, and they're spreading them across the country. He made a comment I thought was very appropriate. He's like, I could set up my computer and have a face-to-face in about five minutes from my request to have it. Where out here in Washington, D.C., I have to travel across the hall and I have to go somewhere. He says they don't need to be in D.C. They can be out where the projects are. So that was an interesting revelation that they're trying to make some changes to how the government reacts to it, at least in his department. And if that improves, it'll go across a lot of departments, and we may see a lot of things actually moving out of Washington, D.C., pending elections, obviously. It was a good conference, met some good people, and got some good contacts. Then on the 19th, I went to, 19th, we had joint jurisdictions. Hopefully last meeting, we passed an ordinance, draft ordinance that will move to the County Planning Commission, the City Planning Commission, to work through that process. And eventually come to a vote of the City Council and to us. So that process, we've worked on it 18 months. I was informed, not 16. So we brought that to a close and moved those those draft proposals on the joint jurisdiction for discussion. I assume that some things will be changed. So that'll be coming to those particular bodies here shortly. So that completes my report. At this point, take a motion to, you already gave your report, didn't you? Okay, so we'll go to motion to executive session, and would you read personnel?
SDCL 125-2-1 for personnel and 4 for contract negotiations.
I forgot it was one. Is there a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll move into executive session, and we'll call you back, Commissioner Pearson, when we get there.
Thank you.
Thank you.